Good morning again. I'd like to share with you a short history of medicine. Doctor, I have an earache. In 2000 BC, here, eat this root. In 1000 AD, that root is heathen, say this prayer. In 1850 AD, that prayer is superstition, drink this potion. In 1940 AD, that potion is snake oil, swallow this pill. In 1985 AD, that pill is ineffective. Take this antibiotic. In 2000 AD, that antibiotic is artificial. Here, eat this root. You know, sometimes life has this peculiar circular quality to it, doesn't it? Trends go away and then they come back again. And if you hold on to your clothing long enough, you know, it will come back in style. There's a woman I work with who shows up with new clothes, I mean, all of the time. And I'll say, is that new? And she'll say, back of the closet. Found it again. Something old, found it again. Today, things are changing in every corner of life. Ideas about religion and faith, about relationships, about work, about possessions and owning them. There was a time when we thought that more was better, right? What was that? Remember that bumper sticker, the one who dies with the most toys wins, or something like that? Well, recently I attended a family conference with a patient and her family, her entire family, and the nurse and the social worker and the doctor and me in this little teeny duplex living room. And the doctor responded to a question that was posed by our patient by saying, you know, sometimes more is not better. For a while, the focus in medicine was on more care, longer care, more expensive care. In palliative care today, which is the medicine I'm a part of, the focus is really more on quality than quantity. You know the concept of homeostasis? When life gets out of balance, we strive to return to a state of settledness, right? A state of balance. Some of you may have heard of Virginia Satir. She was a well-known family therapist and very famous for a long time. And she did something called kinetic family sculpture. And she would gather, I was able to see her once up at the Red Lion at SeaTac many years ago, and she created this, she'd pull people up from the audience, and then the client would be the one who would be the sculptor. So you, Giselle, you stand here, and Tony, you stand here, and, you know, each person stand here, Michael, you're that son, and, you know, everybody is a different character in the family, and then she has them become a machine together or do some task together, and they're all leaning on and totally dependent on each other. And you know what happens whenever one member of the family leaves or gets pulled out for some reason? What happens to the kinetic family sculpture? You know, it totally changes the sculpture, right? It's kind of like those mobiles that you have hanging over a baby's crib, or maybe your own crib, I don't know. You know, the birds or the whales or whatever. We've got mobiles out there in the world. Whenever anything changes, one piece is taken away, it changes the whole mobile. It's kind of askew, right? So this is how it works not only with mobiles and kinetic family sculptures, but with life. With life, a body is like this. When someone has a head injury, then all the other parts of the brain work to sort of take the place of that part of the head that was injured, you know? When a family, as we said earlier, something happens in a family, then everybody else rushes in to bring the structure, the family, the culture back into homeostasis. And it can be bigger than that. Cultures can do the very same thing. Like a family moves through a chaotic piece when they go through imbalance. And what does a culture do when a culture is struck with imbalance? Think about the disciples. You know, the Bible tells us that after the crucifixion, they were confused and afraid and trying out who would be in charge and what would they all do. I mean, they were just like, I don't know, the 12 Stooges, or the 11 Stooges, I shouldn't say that, but I think they were pretty, you know, out of balance, I'll just say that. They wanted to find their balance and sense of order. And beyond a family, how does the culture deal with imbalance, like a natural disaster like Katrina or a new president. There's a great phrase in the scriptures, maybe you remember exactly where it is, I don't, but there was wailing and gnashing of teeth. And that certainly happens, when we go through a period of imbalance. There's just that sort of nobody really knows what to do and nobody's really in charge because you've never been in this situation before. It happens when the status quo is disturbed, when someone else upset a delicate balance. And the beat goes on, because today the mobile of life gets poked all of the time. Do you know that? Do you have that experience that you set about your day and darn it, this is my list, and this is what I'm going to accomplish today? So you think of how your life is going to look, and never mind your life, just the day, right? One day, in one 24-hour period last week, I went for a walk with one of my foreign exchange students. We went for a walk around Chambers Bay, and somehow I lost both my driver's license and credit card. But I didn't even know that until after we'd eaten dinner at the Chambers Bay, grill there. We had a little dinner, and I go to take my credit card out of my little walking bag that I'm so proud that I have because I'm not carrying a great big fat purse. And I said, let me get that credit card out, and I unzip it, and there's nothing inside. And so anyway, we work it out. They give, I have checks in the car, and we take care of it, but I don't have a driver's license, and I don't have a credit card. And we're going to wait till morning, and the next morning I think, okay, now why has this happened to me? What am I supposed to learn from this or gain from this? And I wind up at the driver's license bureau. I'm going to get an enhanced driver's license. Maybe that's why it happened. Because I'm going to get one of those, those cool enhanced licenses so I can go to Canada and Mexico and all that stuff. But I was there for 3 hours, and the day just kept going like that, And I had a plan for that day, but none of my plan panned out the way I thought it would, or should, of course. I was knocked off balance. So whose decision is this life anyway? Whose decision is this day when I'm knocked off, when I have this sense of being off balance, when somebody plucks a balance card out of my mobile? Who is in charge of all of this? Where does that power lie? Who decides how my life will unfold? Well, surely we're here in unity because we have all realized that we are not victims of circumstances. Am I right? You're not a victim, right? Yeah, maybe one time you thought you were. Well, maybe some days you think you are. Because I did in the driver's license bureau for 2 hours. Anyway, we aren't victims, but we are co-creators with God. Isn't that right? Isn't that how we think about it? God is our source, but God is not like a puppeteer up in the clouds pulling the strings, to decide who's good and who's bad and who gets the goodies and who doesn't. We have at stake in our lives, in our thoughts, in our words, in our every deed, a life. And we make decisions about how we're going to live this life in this very moment, right? So who has the power in this very moment? Well, let's hear some enthusiasm about that. We do. Honestly, do you have power over your life?
Yes.
Yeah, and do you have power over every single detail in your life? No. But what do we have power over? Amen. We have power over our attitude. So we might ask this question about divine order, because after all, God has given us will. God hasn't given us a decision about the details of life, but only how we will face the details of life, right? I wonder sometimes if God has a script that's already written ahead of time. Charles Fillmore, who's the co-founder of the Unity Movement, wrote that we can be what we determine to be. We can be master or serf. It rests with us whether we will fill the high places in life or the low, whether we will serve or be served, lead or be led, be sickly or healthy. Of course, we understand these distinctions are relative only. In the sight of the Most High, the servant may be prized more than the master. This is Charles Fillmore writing. So God, as we understand God to be, has a destiny in mind for us.